These questions will be answered tomorrow on the Tesla earnings call. Let's go through those. There are some interesting ones, but really there are only a few things that actually matter for us Tesla stock investors, and nothing else beside those things really matter. I'll go through those later as well, but let's get through those questions, since this is what the call will be about in a big way when Q&A starts. So anonymous retail investor asks, do you still expect 50% annualized growth for the foreseeable future? Is this also true for specifically the Chinese domestic market? Do you expect to need to cut vehicle prices or offer incentives in any market to sustain demand, or has demand remained stable or is even rising? So what I want to see overall is 50% year-over-year growth, of course. And if we can do that, and if we can keep innovation, then everything will be fine for the stock. And I know there are concerns specifically in the Chinese domestic market. If they have to cut prices, which I have said many times before, that's fine. It's not a big deal. I mean, Tesla increased prices so many times already in just recently that a small cut is not going to do anything if they need to do that. But if they export cars, there's still so much demand. Like, you look at some of the wait times. For example, you just open Australia and you look at Model 3 rear-wheel drive, and you need to wait till February until May. Let's do long range. Same, February to May. Performance, February to May. Okay, explain this to me. How the wait times are so long, and in the meantime, until those wait times come down, why would Tesla want to cut prices? I understand if those wait times were coming down like by a lot. If it all of a sudden dropped down to, let's say, you're getting your Model 3 Performance next month in Australia, okay, then I would see that a price cut is likely. But looking at it right now, I mean, let's check out Model Y. Here's our lovely Model Y, and the rear-wheel drive model is going to take February until May. How about performance, April to June? Okay, this is sort of not making much sense right now. You see, normally you would want the performance model to be delivered quicker because the margins are better usually, and we see that throughout other markets. So there's some sort of thing going on here that is not making complete sense. So we'll see what happens there. But also, when I look at this page for Model Y, I do not see the long range all-wheel drive, not the performance one, but just the standard long range all-wheel drive model. Where is that? So how is there a demand issue? Someone please explain this to me in a way that makes logical sense. Nevertheless, I would like Elon to answer this question anyway, because everyone is so concerned about this, and it would be nice for Elon to reiterate one more time what's going on with what the expectations are for Tesla's demand. Next question. From anonymous retail investor. We keep hearing of a dire energy crisis in Germany this winter. What are Tesla's plans to combat power cuts, and will there be any delays in ramp up in production from Giga Berlin because of this? I'm not worried about this. I made a video earlier. Is Tesla in trouble because of Giga Berlin? And it will be fine. Germany and other countries, they have built up their natural gas reserves, and the price of power is going to be ludicrous, absolutely preposterous. And I have family in Europe, and they're paying amounts for energy you would not believe. That is, unless you live in Europe and you're paying for those prices. You know what I'm talking about. But for us over here in North America, Canada, I live in Vancouver city. So over here we have hydropower. So our electricity price remains extremely stable no matter what's going on in the world. So we are not feeling any of this, and most of the US is not. It's a valid concern, but you look into this and it's not really a concern. So this question, I don't even think this needs to be asked, but I do understand the concern about that. I would rather ask something else than that, but I do understand where most people are coming from. How is production planning going for the Cybertruck? What is the initial phase 1 production target? When can we expect an update on pricing and final design? Now that's a question that I would like to hear more about rather than Giga Berlin energy concerns. Cybertruck is going to be an important product, and I am curious about those targets. So we'll see what comments Elon has there. Next question, what is the progress of 4680 cell ramp, and what factors determine whether vehicles get 2170s versus 4680 cells, and how will that change in the next year? Now that's a question I really want to know, because what matters is innovation and then sustained delivery growth of 50% year after year. And 4680s, that is going to sustain the margin and increase the margin further, or sustain the margin if price cuts happen, which is why I'm not worried about price cuts at all, because if you implement all the technology that we already know how to do, for example, the Giga casting, so front castings and rear castings, and then the structural battery packs and 4680s that go into the structural battery packs, you implement all of those, you can cut prices and keep the same margin. So this is going to be important. Can you share a little bit more on the production ramp targets for the Semi now that production has started? This is something that's interesting to me personally. I would love to hear the comments about that, but the Semi is not really going to be a big deal for Tesla as a company. So we're going to move on to the next one, which is going to be more important. You had said previously that FSD hardware 4 will most likely come first in Cybertruck. Is that still the current plan? Do you expect there to be an upgrade path for hardware 3 cars to hardware 4? Now, this is a more important question. I think there's a good chance that full self driving will not be possible with current hardware. I think technically it definitely is. But you see, do you want the smoothest ride possible? Or do you want a ride that is maybe, the car stops and then thinks for like 5 or 10 seconds before it goes through an intersection? It's a little bit like driving with, a very old person, and you get maybe a little bit worried. Maybe they still drive very well, but we're just a little bit slow. And if you already have the better hardware, think about this. If the old hardware is really an actual limitation for full self-driving, why would you want to keep building your FSD model based on the old hardware? Because if you make FSD work, that's going to be such a tremendous value add for the whole company. And you can upgrade all of the old cars if you need to, if that really makes a substantial difference in terms of how fast you develop FSD and how easier it is to develop. It has been quite a while now, a few years, since Tesla last upgraded the full self-driving computer, basically. So this question, this second part of this question, do you expect there to be an upgrade path for hardware 3 cars to hardware 4? That is something that I really want to know, and then I would elaborate. How do you see that with new hardware, it would be easier or faster to make FSD work. So I wouldn't ask, hey, can we eventually make FSD work on the old hardware? I think if you take enough shortcuts and if you write software well enough, eventually you can do it. But this might be just much easier. And there was, I made a video something like half a year ago now. There was speculation already back then that Tesla for FSD is using all of the compute already. The newest hardware at that time. And last, most voted question from anonymous retail investors, and then we're going to go through the institutional investors. There's like 6 or 7 more questions there, but we're going to go through. Is a share buyback being considered at the moment? This question I would certainly ask. I'm curious if this is actually seriously considered or not. I would much rather prefer that Tesla just focuses on growing deliveries as much as they can, and ramping up production, ramping up innovation, and what's going on with those delays in Australia? How come you gotta wait for something like half a year to get the car there? So maybe focus on those first before doing a share buyback. Maybe open a factory in Australia. I'm not saying go open a factory there, but I'm just saying there's a big backlog. Can't we grow production just a tiny little bit faster? I know it's super hard. But Tesla has the money to open multiple gigafactories all at once, or to build them all at once. I know Stephen Mark Ryan from Solving the Money Problem always makes fun of institutional investors, but there's some good stuff in here, so let's dive into this. First one, given the stringent battery content and assembly requirements for consumer tax credit eligibility under the Inflation Reduction Act. I can't believe they called it Reduction Act, Inflation Reduction Act. How can you reduce inflation by spending more money? Can you speak to Tesla's ability to meet those thresholds in each of 2023, 24, and 25 of your existing and planned supply chain? Now that's something that I would actually really like to hear what they are planning. And I think this will also help alleviate a lot of concerns for demand, because everyone knows those credits will definitely help with a lot of demand. That's clear. And I think Tesla will be able to take advantage of those long term as well. Why wouldn't they? What updates can you offer on the backlog and recent order intake trends, especially outside of the US and specifically in China? Well, I would just like to know why you have to wait so long to get a car in Australia. That's what I would like to ask. Before asking that question. Can you tell us more about the product plus feature roadmap beyond new models and FSD, and specifically for the interior and powertrain of existing vehicle models? Specifically, all I would care is just FSD. Hey, look, if you install FSD, nothing else really matters. Next question. Can you talk about how Tesla could adjust if we were to enter a prolonged recession, including new product prioritization, investment possibility, for example, new factories, factory expansion, service support, infrastructure, productivity, cost measures, and demand stimulation alternatives? Now, that's something that I would actually like to hear from Elon. Not a bad question, I would say. Basically, hey, look, if there's a recession, can you build at the same rate, or are you going to build even more because now labor is cheaper and land perhaps is cheaper if there's a big crash? Or would you scale down a little bit? What would you do? And of course, our companies would be firing people. Would you be hiring to keep moving forward or cut? Next question. The progression from Tesla's first platform with S and X to the second platform with the 3 and the Y led to a 50% reduction in cost of goods sold. Now that's something to consider. Just think about that. It's a moment to savor. When do you see Tesla's third platform being released, and what level of cost of good? There is a fly in my studio here. Anyway, Hopefully it doesn't get in the frame. That would be quite funny. And being released, and what level of cost of goods sold reduction could you achieve? Now that, I think, is something to really think about. I would specifically ask about the Cybertruck. What are you expecting also? And of course, next generation. Yeah, this is a good question, I would say, because it's about margin. If Tesla sustains high margin, the stock will be fine long term. Now, short term, we will have fluctuations if you have factory shutdowns. And keep in mind, right now we are ramping up 2 gigafactories. Austin, Berlin, and Shanghai is being expanded too. So you could say 3. Tomorrow, 5:30 Eastern, is when the Tesla earnings call is scheduled. Of course, I will listen to the call. Actually, I don't think the call matters much at all, basically. Maybe I'll make another video about that later today. But they are fun to listen to. So for me, I listen to them more for entertainment. And if you would like to see 48 reasons why I only own Tesla stock, it's right here. I'll see you in this video, or later today or tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Matt Postius, and I'll see you later.